Chapter 30-90. Chen Zhao arrived at the headquarters of the supernatural organization. West was reporting the details of the conference to him. Chen Zhao stood before the window and looked at the members outside. How's the difference in power? They're stronger than us, West said. Is the difference obvious? Yes, in terms of individual strength, the gap between our high-end combat power and theirs is still relatively small. But the gap between the middle and low-level combat power is very large. In other words, every one of them is at the elite level, and the gap between the high-end combat power and the middle combat power is not big, but the gap between our low-level combat power is very obvious. They have a very special training method for their new members, which is also the reason for the gap between us. What training method? Can we replicate it? West shook his head. No. How do they do it? Every time a newcomer joins, they'll be assigned to another branch to join the teams of the older members. Apart from the captain, no one will know that the newcomer is a newcomer. When carrying out a mission, the newcomer will be assigned to a mission of the same or similar difficulty like the older members. Under normal circumstances, the newcomer will grow rapidly. Isn't that dangerous? There's a certain amount of danger, but it's mainly up to the leader of the team to tell me how dangerous it is. Chen Zhao thought for a long time, wondering if the supernatural organization had the same conditions. President, I've thought about it. This method isn't suitable for the supernatural organization. First, we aren't as big as them. After all, their divisions are connected and don't have complete information sharing. The supernatural organization doesn't have any contact with the other divisions. We're an independent organization. We can't let the other divisions train our members, and they might not treat us with sincerity. Secondly, the other divisions might not be as good as us. Plus, the members we recruit can't compare to the Chinese Special Intelligence Department. This is decided by the environment. Chen Zhao nodded and gave up on the idea. Also, West said, there's another important topic in the conference. We'll use our spells to trade for theirs. We've traded for over 1,000 spells. Of course, the vast majority of the items exchanged this time were of low to mid-level, and the level of confidentiality was not high. The content of the exchange was roughly the same. After all, no one would take out their trump cards to exchange. Did you get any valuable spells? Yes, we did get some. Some of our members improved quite a bit. Moreover, this kind of exchange can also expand our foundation. Both sides had the same idea. After ending the communication with West, Yongling nodded. Chen Zhao entered the Tower of Trials. Once again, Chen Zhao went up from the first floor to the 12th. This kind of intense battle could activate Chen Zhao's status. This allowed him to feel the primordial flame even more clearly on the 12th floor. The primordial flame kept sending all sorts of primitive demonic factors into his body. Then, through layers of screening, he would leave behind something useful for Chen Zhao, which he would then fuse into his body. The change was very, very small. However, this was only a small change. This also ensured that Chen Zhao's consciousness and main genes wouldn't be shaken. After a few hours of practice, Chen Zhao walked out of the Tower of Trials. Every time he came out of the Tower of Trials, he would be full of energy. When he got home, he found that Frigga was still there. Mr. Chen. It's time. Time is up? You mean the seal on Mount Olympus has been unlocked? Not yet, but it'll be soon, Frigga said. I feel that the seal on Mount Olympus has started to loosen. The Olympian gods are eager to break the seal. How much time do you have? You have 3 days to prepare. You must enter the seal in 3 days. Got it. Chen Zhao nodded. Frigga and Chen Zhao had waited for the seal to loosen. They mainly hoped that the Olympian gods would use up some of their power when breaking the seal. The seal couldn't be strengthened, so the Olympian gods couldn't avoid appearing. However, how much of the Olympian gods' power could be preserved? Even Frigga couldn't be sure. Old Zhang, time's up. What time? Time to get rich. Oh, you mean the Olympian gods? Yes. How many days? Come and meet me in 3 days. Okay, I'll prepare. That's it for now. I have to inform the others. Then, Qin Zhao called Bifla and 23rd Blood Mary. They'd all been waiting for this moment for a long time. It was an extremely dangerous mission, but danger also meant high rewards. Just like the last time they'd gone to Asgard, everyone could be said to have made a lot of money. At their level, normal forbidden lands or normal adventures couldn't make their hearts race anymore. To them, the so-called dangers were only the difference between 1 and 2 slaps. Only a battle with the gods could make them nervous and give it their all. Even the usually lively old Zhang didn't play around with Qin Zhao. Everyone faced this operation with a 120% attitude. The three arrived in Los Angeles the next day and met up with Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao, you got a lot of benefits from killing those bald donkeys, right? Zhang Tianyi asked. That's not benefits, just compensation. Qin Zhao said disapprovingly. That's the lifeblood of Zen. If that's all Zen has, you Taoists would have devoured them long ago. Qin Zhao didn't believe Zhang Tianyi. We Taoists have been guessing what Zen has been plotting all these years. Tell me, what did you take from them? It's not anything good, Qin Zhao said disapprovingly. To be honest, the soul of the rock was very good for Qin Zhao, because Qin Zhao could unleash the full power of the rock soul. This was something that the monks couldn't do in the past. The great rock soul was originally imprisoned within their bodies. They had to use a portion of their power to suppress the soul. Qin Zhao and the rock were mutually beneficial. They lived in Qin Zhao's inner world. At the same time, they willingly lent their power to Qin Zhao. He didn't need to force them. Plus, Qin Zhao could use the power of 6 rocks at the same time. In the past, the monks would find it difficult to use just one. This was the difference. As for the smallest golden rock, Qin Zhao didn't plan on using it for now. Qin Zhao didn't plan to use it for now because it still had great potential. It had a chance to evolve into a real mythical rock. Chapter 30:291. Greece. A group of people walked out of the airport. Is this Greece? It feels like the air here is made of myths, a woman said. I hope we can really find the mythical ruins this time. Even if we can't find it, we can treat it as a vacation. I don't have that much money to travel to Greece every time. We have high hopes this time. I remember that the statue of Hera I bought last time seemed to have a reaction when I put it on the map. I think the statue of Hera is guiding me. I hope it's really like what you want. This team was made up of strong combat power, the most outstanding alchemists, and the best formation masters. Of course, they were the best at their level. They came from various countries. The best formation master was from the Huaxia Dao I Ching school. His name was Yunyu. The most outstanding alchemist was from England. He was a noble child. His name was Luowen. However, he didn't like an easy life and preferred adventure. There were also 3 spiritualists with top combat power. They were paired, Lillian and Vidal. One was an elementalist, one was an archer, and one was a special spiritualist. They were all disciples of the Dao I Ching school. Yunyu was the son of the Dao I Ching school's leader. They played together when they were young. Later, after they left the Dao I Ching school, they returned to their own residences or clans. However, they didn't lose contact. The first time they worked together was when they were 18 or 19 years old. At that time, Yunyu found an ancient treasure map and contacted them, wanting to uncover the secret of the treasure map together. The few hot-blooded youths embarked on a journey. In the end, it was more daunting than dangerous, and they gained a lot. Later, they worked together many times. They became familiar and trusted each other. At the same time, they became more and more tacit. So now, whenever they had any adventure, they would call the others. They had come to Greece several times. At first, it was a map recorded in ancient Greek. After translation, they learned that it was a place called the Tomb of Olympus. However, they followed the translated route of the map and found nothing. They all knew that the map alone wasn't enough. They still lacked an opportunity. This time, they finally found that opportunity. The statue of Hera, a magic tool bought in a second-hand shop. Yunyu, look at those people. Luo pointed at a few people not far away. One of them wore aviator sunglasses and had his hair combed into a bun. His hair was black and white, and his figure was tall and straight. Don't you think that old man looks like Celestial Master Zhang from Longhu Mountain? What are you thinking? How could Celestial Master Zhang come here? I said it looked like him, but I didn't say it was definitely him. While they were discussing in a low voice, those people had already gotten into the car. Is that really not Celestial Master Zhang? Luoan asked. I think it looks quite similar. Even though they were sitting in the car, Luoan couldn't help but ask, You Chinese all look the same. If I say it's not, then it's not. Celestial Master Zhang is such a decent person. He wouldn't dress so fashionably, Yunyu said, rolling his eyes. The team did not stay in the hotel. Instead, he went straight to the Parthenon temple. This was the starting point of the blueprint. Luo injected the magic power in his palm into the blueprint. A cloud began to appear on the blueprint. The cloud seemed to be alive, shrouding everyone in it. Then the scenery around them changed. The Parthenon temple disappeared and was replaced by a vast wasteland. Then the cloud turned into a star chart. Luo closed his eyes and slowly moved his finger along the trajectory of the star chart. The surrounding scenery also began to pass by quickly. It was as if they were riding an extremely high-speed train. As Luo's finger moved faster or slower, the scenery that flew by would also speed up or slow down. If Luo had enough magic power, they could even reach the end of the star chart in an instant. But in fact, the movement of Luo's finger consumed a lot of magic power. Every minute and second, Luo was using a huge amount of magic power to maintain their movement. Finally, Luo's finger stopped, and the group came to an unfamiliar cliff. In front of them was the boundless sea, and in the distance was the shadow of a mountain shrouded in clouds and mist. It was not the first time they had been here. They all suspected that the mountain shrouded in clouds and mist might be the legendary Mount Olympus. They tried to approach the mountain again and again, but to no avail. This was the end of the star chart. If they wanted to get to the mountain, they could only walk. But no matter how they walked, they could never get close to the mountain. After walking for 10 days to half a month, the distance to the mountain didn't seem to be getting closer. So the distance to the mountain was far farther than they thought. Or maybe they were blocked by magic, so if they didn't break this magic, they couldn't really get close to the mountain. Luo took out the statue of Hera. The statue of Hera didn't need him to input magic power. The moment the statue of Hera was taken out, it suddenly cracked. Everyone was startled, but before they could react, a voice rang out. The fragments suddenly turned into countless spots of light. The spots of light slowly formed the shape of a goddess. My children, you are finally here. Are you here to open a miracle? Who are you? Everyone was surprised and looked at the goddess made of light in front of them in disbelief. Even if it was just made of light, they still felt how incredible the existence they were facing was. Majestic, powerful, surging. When they faced this goddess, they didn't feel like they were facing a person, but more like facing a vast sky or a vast plain. What they felt was insignificance and insignificance. I am Hera, the Queen of Gods, the merciful God. No need to ask too much. When you open the ruins, you will get all the answers. Everyone looked at each other. But since they were already here, they wouldn't back down. Hera then turned into a spot of light again, and her voice came. You need to pick up the remains of the behemoth on the beach and use them to build a ship. Everyone was a bit dumbfounded. Build a ship? In the end, everyone could only look at Luo, and Luo was an alchemist. The only person here who could possibly build a ship was him. Luo scratched his head. I'll try my best. On the beach below the cliff, the remains of the behemoth were everywhere. Huge skeletons were scattered all over the endless coastline, so materials weren't a problem. They easily collected a large number of behemoth bones. Then Luo began to forge. After you build the behemoth ship, sail west for 7 days. You will see the stars. Then I will tell you what to do next. Chapter 3292. They drifted on the sea for 7 days. On the 7th day they saw land. They didn't know how long they'd been drifting for. It seemed very far, but it also seemed like they'd floated on the sea for a few days before returning to their starting point. When they landed on land, Hera appeared again. "My children, you've arrived at the foot of Mount Olympus." Everyone was confused. Foot of the mountain? Where was Mount Olympus? They could still see a blurry silhouette in the distance. How come there wasn't anything nearby? Great goddess, why can't we see Mount Olympus? You're in the grave of the lost. This place will hide the truth. The plane you see is just an illusion. If you want to touch the real Mount Olympus, you can only destroy the bloodthirsty silk-coiled ones here and use their eyeballs to clear the illusion. Hera pointed out the location of the bloodthirsty silk-coiled ones. When they'd heard the name, they'd thought that it was a spider-type magical beast. But when they saw it, they realized that the bloodthirsty silk-coiled ones were actually a giant butterfly magical beast. They defeated the bloodthirsty silk-coiled ones with some difficulty. After plucking out the eyeballs, they injected magic power into the eyeballs. They injected magic into their eyes, and in an instant, the scenery in front of them changed. An extremely majestic mountain appeared in front of them. They couldn't even see the outline of the entire mountain from where they were. Similarly, they couldn't see the peak either. The foot of the mountain was already shrouded in mist. The higher they went, the more blurry it became. They even wondered if this divine mountain could reach heaven. "It's spectacular!" Luoyin and the others couldn't help but exclaim. "Yes, it's spectacular." Just then, they heard an unfamiliar voice. When they turned around, they saw a few people walking toward them. Wasn't one of them the old man they'd seen the other day? "Celestial Master Zhang? Your Celestial Master Zhang?" Yunyu finally confirmed that the old man was Zhang Tianyi. The others were also shocked. It really was Zhang Tianyi. In the spiritual world, Zhang Tianyi was almost a legendary figure. They didn't think that they'd actually see him in person one day, and so close too. "Chen Zhao, it's about time." Chen Zhao nodded and flew into the air. Seeing Chen Zhao fly into the sky, the young people couldn't help but be surprised. First of all, being able to fly was a sign of outstanding strength. They thought that Chen Zhao was Zhang Tianyi's junior. Soon, Chen Zhao disappeared from the clouds. "All of you stand behind us." "Ah, come here if you don't want to die," said the 23rd Blood Mary. Everyone looked at the 23rd Blood Mary. For a moment, they did not recognize her. It couldn't be helped. The 23rd generation Blood Mary looked like a 10-year-old girl. Everyone was even more puzzled as to why Zhang Tianyi would bring such a little girl with him. Could it be that they were here to travel? At this moment, a golden light appeared above the clouds in the sky. Everyone raised their heads to look at the sky. Zhang Tianyi immediately cast a spell that enveloped everyone. At the next moment, the 23rd generation Blood Mary let out a long breath. Everyone discovered that even this young girl's strength was astonishing. They were actually unable to see through the depths of this young girl. The breath that Blood Mary spat out turned into runes and attached to Zhang Tianyi's magic barrier. Bifla also acted. He opened his right palm. A 5-colored flame appeared in his palm. The flame also attached to Zhang Tianyi's barrier. The 3 spells complemented each other and formed an unparalleled barrier. Everyone was mesmerized by the scene. Even though they could not understand even 1/10 of the essence of the barrier, they could still feel the supreme mysteries contained in the barrier. Just then, the clouds in the sky were completely dyed by the golden light. Everyone held their breaths. The young people widened their eyes. Finally, they saw clearly what was emitting the golden light. It was a huge golden ball that streaked across the sky with a tail. Everyone widened their eyes. Zhang Tiany's expression turned serious. He immediately added another layer of protection. The 23rd generation Blood Mary and Bifla did the same. The golden star charged straight at Mount Olympus. The next moment, the sky and the earth touched. Everyone's eyes were covered by the golden light. Then the earth quaked, the mountains shook, and the sky fell and the earth cracked. The young men felt like the ground was rippling, constantly spreading out. The golden light did not disperse. Everyone found it hard to breathe. The barrier in front of them disintegrated in the first round of impact. But it was quickly repaired. Just like that, it continued to break, repair, and break. The shaking ground and the golden light lasted for 10 minutes. For the young people on the scene, it was simply 10 minutes of hell. When they were able to see, they saw a terrifying hole appear on Mount Olympus in front of them. It was a huge hole with a diameter of 100 kilometers. It was imprinted on the mountain, just like that. And this was only the center of the impact. The truly terrifying thing was the shock wave after the impact. The ground behind them had already turned into powder. There was no seawater on the coastline. The young people were all in disbelief. What was that golden ball just now? Why did it hit Mount Olympus? Just then, a golden light flew out from the center of the impact. Everyone was nervous, but when the golden light neared, they realized that it was a person. It was the person who had flown into the sky. Could it be that the collision of the golden star with Mount Olympus was his doing? Everyone was even more in disbelief. Chen Zhao did not look much older than them. He could even be considered the same age. Because of this, they felt even more incredulous. Just then, the statue of Hera suddenly revealed Hera's form. "You filthy, despicable humans! You deserve to die! You deserve to die!" Chun Zhao flicked casually and destroyed Hera's form. Mount Olympus was the source of power for the Olympians. But now Mount Olympus was heavily damaged. At the same time, it was also unprecedented. In the past, no one could cause such damage to Mount Olympus. The young people were all in disbelief. "I thought you could smash Mount Olympus," Zhang Tian said insincerely. "It's not that I can't smash it. If I smash Mount Olympus, where are we going to get our trophies? Qin Zhao, what's with that look? I've never seen you do this before." Chapter 30, 293. Right now, Chun Zhao was in his original form. Yun Yu and Luo and were both shocked. What they sensed was the boundless blue dome of heaven, a boundless ocean. What they felt from Chun Zhao was endless. It was as if even Mount Olympus wasn't as eye-catching as this golden body. Just then, Mount Olympus started shaking violently. It was as if the surrounding space had been torn apart. Frigga looked in the direction of Mount Olympus. "It's here. Get ready." Beside Blood Mary, Bader's expression was serious. Suddenly, a black light flashed in the direction of Mount Olympus. The next moment, the black light shot toward everyone. Bader's heart almost jumped out. In that instant, he felt an incomparably terrifying sense of danger. Void parasite. Suddenly, Qin Zhao grabbed forward. Qin Zhao grabbed the black light tightly in his hand. It was an arrow. It was an arrow made of a black plant branch. The black arrow was still vibrating in Qin Zhao's hand. It seemed like it could break free from Chen Zhao's control at any time, and it was aimed at Bader. Chen Zhao shifted the angle. It was still aiming at Bader. The arrow was there for Bader. "Mr. Chen, don't let go." Frigga said hurriedly, "I'll seal it." Bader didn't dare to move until the seal ended. The threat of that insight was simply too great for him. No, it wasn't a threat. It was death. Someone as strong as Chen Zhao couldn't do anything to Bader. Chen Zhao couldn't do anything to Bader. Chen Zhao had beaten Bader up twice, but he couldn't kill Bader. This was something that no one had ever been able to do before. But Bader had done it. Only this small arrow remained. To others, it might be a powerful attack. But to Bader, it was different. He didn't even dare to touch it. He didn't even have the courage to run. Just then, a dozen huge figures appeared in the direction of Mount Olympus. They weren't humanoid. Most of them were monsters. There were many Olympian gods. Apart from the 12 well-known gods, there were also a bunch of messy gods. There was also a mess of gods, and a large number of them were not even human gods. The illusory divine shadows in front of him belonged to the low-level gods with messy authorities and clergies. They were also the vanguard to explore the way. The moment they broke through the seal, they charged at Chen Zhao's group. Chen Zhao clenched his fists, ready for a big fight. At this moment, Bifila said, "Leave them to me." Everyone took a step back and left the battlefield to Bifila. Bifila wasn't careless either. He spread out his hands, and thousands of red-hot chains shot out from his palms. The iron-like chains instantly bound the dozen beasts and dragged them out of the void. Those beast gods were all incomparably shocked and furious. They struggled and attacked Bifila. But when Bifila raised his palms, these beast gods were flung up and down. The chains became tighter and tighter, sinking deep into the bodies of these beast gods. The moment the chains sank in, the chains ignited with scorching flames. Even the gods couldn't bear the pain. Finally, the beast deities stopped struggling, and the chains started to become part of their skin. It was no longer tangible, but like a tattoo, it was branded on the beast god skin. Bifila retracted the spell. The beast gods turned around and faced Mount Olympus. "Bifila, how did you do it?" "I recently found a method when I was reading ancient books called God Enslavement. I think this method is still lacking, but many of the ideas mentioned in it are correct. So after I learned it, I figured out how to complete this method myself." "Are they enslaved by you now?" "Yes. Don't worry about them betraying you. They can't. The few juniors couldn't close their mouths." Who exactly were these people? They only knew Zhang Tianyi. If it was Zhang Tianyi, they could understand. But why did everyone in this team seem unbelievably powerful? Any random person could enslave a deity, and not just one, but a group of deities. These people were all a bit too powerful. Why hadn't they heard of them before? Actually, it wasn't that they didn't know about Bifila. It was mainly because Bifila was too low profile. The sect of fire was still very famous. Clang! Suddenly, the entire sky shattered like a mirror. In an instant, countless colorful beams of light shot out from the sky. Beams of light shot out from the cracks on the ground. The colorful beams danced in the sky. They filled the sky. Just then, a pair of enormous palms pushed the clouds aside and poked their heads out. The king of the sky, Uranus. Qin Zhao looked at the king of the sky. He was much weaker than Gaia. However, Yunyu, Luoyin, and the others were shocked by Uranus' enormous face. They had never imagined that they would be able to witness such a shocking scene one day. The clouds in the sky kept being torn apart. Huge faces poked their heads out of the clouds. All of them were unbelievably big. The 12 Titans. They're the 12 Titans. Apparently, they're all gods from the old era, the descendants of the king of the sky. Just then, a beam of light landed on the ground and turned into a human figure. It was the first god they'd seen, then a second and a third. Soon the ground was filled with deities. The last ray of white light landed on the ground, and a man with a head full of white hair and a robust appearance appeared. "Your Majesty, we welcome your arrival. The king of Olympus, the father of all gods, Zeus." Zeus looked at Chen Zhao's group. He didn't waste any words. He raised his right arm and a bolt of lightning fell. Zeus grabbed it. "Mortal, accept the judgment of God." From the moment Chen Zhao crashed into Mount Olympus, both sides knew that this battle wouldn't end well. Only one side would be destroyed. Qin Zhao's group knew. So did Zeus and the other gods. Yunyu, Luoyin, and the others were dumbfounded. What was going on? Zhang Tianyi's group was here to fight the gods of Olympus? They'd thought that Zhang Tiany's group was only here to bully a few weak gods. They didn't expect a bunch of mythical bosses to appear. They felt that the situation was developing in an unpredictable direction. The battle of the gods had begun. The golden light on Chen Zhao's body suddenly intensified. The next moment, some white light appeared in the golden light. Chen Zhao charged at Zeus. Zeus directly shot lightning at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't stop in the lightning. He charged at Zeus with an unstoppable momentum. Chapter 3294. The lightning couldn't stop Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao couldn't touch Zeus either. Zeus turned into a bolt of lightning and moved away. Chen Zhao was still charging forward. Just then, Zhang Tiany, Baifla, and 23rd Blood Mary's spells all landed on Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was even faster. His body flashed with rainbow light. "Stop him!" Zeus' majestic voice rang through the plains. Chen Zhao was still unstoppable. All the Olympian gods in his way would be smashed into pieces by Chen Zhao. Some gods could turn their bodies into nothingness, but others would shatter upon touch. Just then, a golden-haired goddess of war wearing golden armor and holding a shield and spear blocked Chen Zhao's way. She threw the spear at Chen Zhao as if she was going to tear the world apart. As Chen Zhao charged forward, he took out his black trident. He smashed the spear into pieces. The goddess of war saw her spear shatter. She raised an eyebrow, but her gaze was still resolute as she blocked Chen Zhao. He raised his shield in front of him. Bang! In the dazzling light, the shield shattered. More than half of the goddess of war's body was destroyed. Chen Zhao swung the black trident again. The goddess of war's body shattered. The next moment, the goddess of war used all her strength to grab the black trident. "Let's fall into death together." The goddess of war's divine kingdom also swallowed Chen Zhao. Inside the goddess of battle's holy kingdom, countless heroic spirits rose. They surged toward the goddess of war's collapsing body. The goddess of war also gradually recovered in her divine kingdom. But the next moment, Chen Zhao's black trident smashed down from above. The goddess of war's body collapsed before she could recover. The millions of souls in her divine kingdom also exploded at the same time. A dark red neutron star formed in Chen Zhao's hand. The energy from the dark red neutron star swallowed everything. In the outside world, Chen Zhao only disappeared for a few seconds and then reappeared. Then a ball of nameless flames covered the entire battlefield. It was released from the goddess of war's divine kingdom. When the goddess of war's divine kingdom was destroyed, the dark red neutron star's energy hadn't been completely used up. On the contrary, due to the compression of the divine kingdom the moment the divine kingdom shattered, all the energy gushed out in an even more violent manner. Several other deities nearby were affected by the shock waves as they were too close. He didn't stop. He continued charging toward Mount Olympus. "That goddess is Athena." Luo uncovered his mouth, his face full of disbelief. Yunyu and the others nodded blankly. There were only 6 humans on the human side, while there were hundreds of Olympian gods. However, the situation seemed to be completely leaning towards the human side. Of course, they didn't know Frigga and Bader. He only treated them as human powerhouses. Just then, a beam of golden light flashed across the battlefield, chasing after Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao suddenly changed directions, but the golden light still chased after him. Whoosh! The golden light pierced through Chen Zhao's back and chest. Chen Zhao stopped. He looked at his body in disbelief. His body had been pierced. Golden divine power raged in his body. Chen Zhao looked back. It was a very beautiful goddess, Artemis. By then, Artemis had already knocked the second golden arrow and pointed it at Chen Zhao. The moment the bowstring was released, Chen Zhao turned into a beam of light. The arrow pierced through Chen Zhao's chest again, but Artemis' headless corpse also fell to the ground. Suddenly, a shadow covered Qinzhao. A titan covered in red and gold patterns reached out from the clouds, grabbing at Qinzhao. Qinzhao punched with all his strength. The titan's arm turned into a rain of blood. The power didn't dissipate. Instead, it spread up the titan's arm. Its body and head also collapsed. The sky was filled with a scarlet rain of blood, covering the entire battlefield. Qinzhao no longer charged toward Mount Olympus. Instead, he charged toward the sky. The harassment of the deities and titans made it impossible for him to accumulate enough speed. He had to clear out some of the hindrances first. The battlefield was already dark. Zhang Tianyi, Baifla, and 23rd Blood Mary were also fighting with their lives. Frigga and Bader's situation wasn't ideal. Their battle prowess was not outstanding here. But Zhang Tianyi, Baifla, and 23rd Blood Mary were nearby. They looked out for each other and weren't in danger. Only Qinzhao was charging forward. The young men were all dumbfounded by what they saw. This place was filled with deities, but that person was ridiculously strong. Even a titan whose body could blot out the sky was defeated by him with a single strike. Boom! A giant head with a diameter of 1,000 meters fell from the sky. It created a terrifying impact, like a meteor. Some weaker deities were even annihilated by the impact. Suddenly, the sky shone with golden light. Everyone raised their heads to look at the sky. The light around Qinzhao was even brighter. The power of the 6 rocks poured into Qinzhao's body at the same time. At the same time, he became one with the golden light. Everyone and all the deities looked up at the same time, their faces filled with disbelief. That feeling was too strange. Qinzhao's body emitted a strange qi. This qi was assimilating the sky and the earth. After Qinzhao fused with the power of the 6 rocks, he was also in disbelief. Was he using the power of the rocks to break through the limit? It didn't seem like it. It was just that his power level had increased. He was still in the Ascension realm. But even so, Qinzhao's power was increasing at an unbelievable rate. Every punch could shatter the sky, and every strike could shatter the earth. What was even more unbelievable was that the power seeping out of Qinzhao's body was assimilating the surrounding air and matter, forming an incomplete, small world. Even though Qinzhao still had a small world in his body, it was like Qinzhao could have 2 small worlds at the same time. The 2 small worlds, one inside and one outside, were connected. They complemented each other, but the outside small world wasn't complete, and it wasn't permanent either. Only now did Qinzhao display his true overwhelming power. Mother Gaia, answer my call. Your children are about to be slaughtered by this group of humans. A sky titan shouted, but his cry didn't get a response. The next moment, the titan's body disintegrated. His golden blood dyed the clouds red. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed across the sky and attacked Qinzhao. The black shadow was covered in darkness. The black smoke behind him carried the divine souls of the deities that Qinzhao had just killed. Hades, king of the underworld. The dead deities were lending their divine power and even the power of their souls to Hades. Qinzhao looked back. The 4th turtle's internal alchemy on the black trident in his hand lit up. Qinzhao threw the black trident with force. The black trident instantly pierced through Hades and the black smoke behind him. At the same time, it carried the power that Hades had gathered and shot toward Mount Olympus with unstoppable force. Chapter 3295. The moment the black trident stabbed into Mount Olympus, all the divinities paused for a moment. Zeus let out an earth-shattering roar. No. Then the earth started shaking and the sky started collapsing. From the cracks in the ground and sky, many twisted tentacles reached out. Mount Olympus also collapsed with a loud rumble. All the gods became extremely weak, including the last titan in the sky, Uranus. When Mount Olympus collapsed, a body even larger than Uranus crawled out. It was a giant with the lower body of an octopus and the upper body of a human, but he had no facial features. His face was a whirlpool. The surrounding weak gods were sucked into the whirlpool. What's that guy? The 12 titans? The 12 gods? Chen Zhao realized that even Uranus, the first god, was afraid. Just then, the tentacles of the giant god's lower body shot toward Uranus in the sky. It pulled Uranus down from the clouds. "Ah, save me, or else you'll all die." Uranus screamed. His body was rapidly withering. His power was being absorbed by the monster. Chen Zhao landed beside Zhang Tianyi and the others. "Zhang, what's that? Is it a god too? Or is it the secret weapon of the Olympians?" "Secret weapon, my *SS, Zhang Tianyi said. "That's Chaos." "Who? Never heard of him." "Senior, that Chaos is the legendary origin of the universe. He is also the parent of Gaia, the mother of Earth, and Uranus, the god of the sky. The 2 first gods are his children," Luo and said respectfully. "The beginning is Chaos," Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, "I didn't expect Mount Olympus to be the seal of chaos. I don't think we can handle it." Mary, the 23rd blood, frowned. On the other hand, Qin Zhao stared at chaos. It seemed that he was indeed unstoppable as he devoured the gods. But for some reason, he felt that chaos power was similar to when he'd opened up his inner world. Bifla's expression was bitter too. He didn't expect such a monster to be hidden among the Olympians. Qin Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi. "Zhang, you're opening up your inner world, right?" Stunned, Zhang Tianyi looked back at Qin Zhao in surprise. He vaguely understood what Qin Zhao meant. Because Bifla and the 23rd blood, Mary, hadn't started developing their inner worlds yet. So, they didn't know what Qin Zhao meant. But Zhang Tianyi knew. "Sage, Chen Zhao, do you have a way to deal with this guy?" "As long as your level is high enough," Chen Zhao said. "You definitely have enough. Does the Heavenly Master have enough too?" "There's no hurry. Let's wait until he absorbs all the Olympian gods," Zhang Tianyi said. The last Olympian god, Zeus. At this moment, he was bitterly holding on. "Chaos! Return to where you belong. Scram back to the chaos." Mount Olympus was the source of power for the gods. It was all because of the existence of chaos. The gods were parasites on his body. Now that chaos was awake, it meant that the gods were weaned. Although Zeus was the most powerful, he had ultimately lost his source of power. His remaining divine power was not enough to hold on for too long. No matter how powerful Zeus was, he was still a natural counter to chaos. Most of his divine power came from chaos. In the past, when chaos was in a deep sleep, the Olympian gods naturally took whatever they wanted. But now, chaos had awakened, and the power that the Olympian gods had stolen was naturally recovered by chaos. Suddenly, red threads of divine power wrapped around Zeus' body. Of course, these divine threads weren't meant to help Zeus. Everyone looked at the 23rd Blood Mary in surprise. Then they saw Zeus divine, soul being pulled out by the 23rd Blood Mary. Under normal circumstances, the 23rd Blood Mary might not be a match for Zeus. But Zeus had just come out of the seal, so his power was greatly weakened. Now he was faced with chaos absorption. Zeus' power dropped again and again. He didn't even have 10% of his full power. Then the 23rd Blood Mary ambushed him from behind. In shock, Zeus' body was devoured by chaos. Meanwhile, his divine soul was pulled out by the 23rd Blood Mary directly. Just then, Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi ran toward chaos at the same time. To others, the chaos might be a terrifying monster. Even the gods would be afraid of the chaos. But to Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi, it was a rare tonic. A super tonic. Even Qin Zhao would go crazy for it. The size of the inner world would increase one's burden. Even for Qin Zhao, the size of his inner world was limited. At the same time, the first thing he had to face was the chaos. Just like how Pengu split the sky and earth and split the chaos, opening the inner world was also splitting the chaos, or rather refining it. Zhang Tianyi was still trying to figure it out. Chun Zhao had already formed his small world, but the border of the small world was still chaos. With every bit of chaos that was refined, the rules of the small world would be one step closer to perfection. In other words, chaos could evolve into rules. It could also be said that it was the process of creating order from chaos. Opening the chaos at the border of the small world was far less effective than the chaos before him. Perfecting the rules of the small world without expanding its size would be much more effective. Chun Zhao had estimated that if he wanted the rules of his small world to be completely perfected, his small world would need to be hundreds of times larger. Even he might not be able to handle it. But with the chaos before him, it was completely different. It was even more important to Zhang Tianyi. He could grasp the rules of the inner world from the chaos before opening his inner world. This would allow him to be more relaxed when opening his inner world. Chun Zhao dodged a tentacle that was tens of thousands of meters long that waved in front of him. He raised his arm and the tentacle was cut off. Chun Zhao reached out and grabbed. The tentacle was sucked into his hand and then thrown into the small world. On the other side, Zhang Tianyi was like a treacherous leech. He silently attached himself to chaos back and secretly absorbed chaotic aura. The 23rd, Blood Mary, and Bifla looked at each other. They could both sense that Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi might have discovered something good about chaos, but they didn't know what it was either. Of course, they couldn't just watch. The two followed, although they couldn't directly absorb the chaotic aura like Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi. At the very least, they could leave some bits and pieces and then seal them. Chapter 3296. Chaos had absolute control over the Olympian gods. This was because most of the Olympian gods' power came from chaos. But for others, they could only use the poisonous chaotic energy. Normal people couldn't handle the chaotic energy unless they were made of earth or stone. If not, then they would become earth or stone. Apart from Chun Zhao and Zhang Tianyi, who refined the chaotic energy directly, Chun Zhao's small world was spinning furiously. It kept replenishing the chaotic energy and then being refined by Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao realized that after refining, the chaotic energy didn't directly turn into the laws of the world. Instead, it turned into a few wisps of clear energy that either merged with the world or the mountains and rivers. If one only looked at the structure of the small world, there were no changes, but Chun Zhao could clearly feel that. His small world had a sliver of order. If one looked at Chun Zhao's small world from a human's point of view, it was basically hell. It was basically hell. Humans would never be able to survive in such a world. Chaotic energy was everywhere. Flames collided and exploded. High temperature swept the entire world. Only the 6 rocks, souls, rested here. But as the wisps of clear energy merged, the small world seemed to calm down. The spinning fireball in the sky no longer spewed out turbulent flames. The ground no longer split open easily. There was also an even more obvious change. The power of the world was more abundant now. Chun Zhao stopped dodging chaos attacks. Instead, he charged straight at chaos. Chun Zhao and chaos collided. The sky and earth were collapsing. Chaos was the ruler of this world. At the same time, he was the center of it. It was like the eye of a formation. When the eye of the formation was attacked, the entire formation would naturally shake violently. To be honest, chaos power was definitely above everything else. Even Chun Zhao, Zhang Tianyi, Bifla, and the 23rd Blood Mary together might not be as strong as him, because chaos had already created this world. No, it should be said that this world had created chaos. The birth of a world didn't necessarily have to have a mind or a body first. For example, Chun Zhao first opened up his inner world and then started refining the chaos. Zhang Tianyi first refined the chaos and then opened up his inner world. This world was far more complete and vast than Qin Zhao's small world. However, Chaos thoughts were too simplistic. It was just like the Earth's world will. The Earth's world will was very powerful and complete, but it was also very singular. There were no emotional thoughts, and there was no complex logical thinking. Just like a scientist once said, if logical thinking really existed in the world, then humans would have been extinct a long time ago. Chaos' simple way of thinking meant that he would not have any complicated attacks. Perhaps in the past he did not need to think logically, because he had no natural enemies. Gods do not need to think. Compared to the Olympian gods, Chaos was the true god. The Olympian gods were just parasites. Chaos was getting weaker and weaker, or rather, weaker and weaker. He had no concept of weakness. However, his body had clearly shrunk. Qin Zhao had been greedily plundering Chaos' aura. Zhang Tianyi couldn't fight and devour like Qin Zhao. However, he was also trying his best to digest the primal chaos energy. On the third day, everyone suddenly felt an unusual aura emanating from Zhang Tianyi. Everyone's eyes were focused on Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi's body was enveloped by a gorgeous radiance. Countless Taoist seals appeared around the radiance, especially Bifla and 23rd Blood Mary. Ascension. Celestial Master Zhang has actually reached Ascension now. They looked at Qin Zhao and then at Zhang Tianyi. Congratulations. Congratulations to you too. The divine light on Zhang Tianyi's body was restrained, but the transformation had not stopped. I'm only half a step into Ascension. I can't compare to you. Right now, Zhang Tianyi had only opened up an internal world. Back then, Qin Zhao's internal world had operated on its own before he had truly reached Ascension. Zhang Tianyi had opened up an internal world, but it could not operate on its own. Thus, although his cultivation had improved greatly, he was still not a true Ascension. Bifla and 23rd Blood Mary were in high spirits. Clearly, they also realized the benefits this had brought to Chaos. Unfortunately, they hadn't opened up an internal world and were still figuring it out. To them, the primal chaos energy was a lethal poison. Even they couldn't handle the primal chaos energy. Thus, they could only use containers to store the primal chaos energy. They weren't like Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi, who could directly absorb and refine it. However, there was a limit to the number of containers. They'd brought many containers, but they would eventually run out of them. 7 days and 7 nights, looking at Chaos, which was becoming smaller and smaller. Qin Zhao was now the size of a mountain. Zhang Tianyi moved even faster. More than half of the primal chaos energy in Chaos had been plundered by Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao, slow down. Chaos is too small. Qin Zhao had no intention of stopping. Just then, Bifla suddenly said, Qin Zhao, stop and leave a seed. Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi were both stunned. They looked at Bifla. If we completely destroy him now, there won't be any in the future. Give him some time to recover, Bifla said. Qin Zhao then looked at Zhang Tianyi. Although Zhang Tianyi still wanted to continue, he still hesitated and stopped. The 23rd Blood Mary naturally stopped as well. How do we split it? Before our realms are up to par, you and Celestial Master Zhang will split the harvest between you and him. Give him 10 years to cultivate, and then whoever comes to reap the harvest will be yours. The second 10 years will be swapped with someone else. If Bifla and I haven't reached the corresponding realm by the third 10 years, then we'll continue taking turns. If one of us reaches your current realm, then the third 10 years will be given to the third person, and so on. Sure. Qin Zhao nodded first. Chaos was too weak now. There was no point in devouring more. It was better to keep him as a seed. Every 10 years, she would come to visit him. If he was completely destroyed now, the world would also collapse. As for how to rotate and who came first, they could sit down and talk. It was mainly Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi who would talk. They were the only ones to benefit now. Although it was only a verbal agreement, it was more binding than most contracts. Their small group was united by their credibility, unless, one day, a benefit that no one could refuse appeared. Only then could this small group collapse. At least for now, their relationship was still very stable. Chapter 30-97. Next, of course, was to search for the Olympian treasures in the ruins. After this war, the Olympian gods had fallen and Mount Olympus had collapsed. But some treasures wouldn't be destroyed. Frigga glanced at the young people behind her. The war of the gods is over. We used you. Now, in return, you can search for the treasures or power of the gods. Right now, everyone was still shocked by the war that had exceeded their imagination. Fortunately, Chen Zhao's group didn't plan to burn the bridge after crossing it. Of course, their abilities meant that they wouldn't be able to gain much here. Chen Zhao's group was searching by plundering. These young people were really exploring. After all, there were insurmountable chasms everywhere. Everywhere was filled with hidden catastrophic energy. The land that had just gone through a war was still filled with hidden dangers. It might not be much for the participants of the War of the Gods, but for them it was fatal danger. Chen Zhao found the Thor's spear. Even though Zeus was dead, the spear was still filled with divinity and the power of lightning. Chen Zhao, give that to me. I'll trade something else for it. 23rd Blood Mary said. Oh, I remember that your divine right isn't lightning, right? What do you want it for? Did you forget that I obtained Zeus' divine soul? What do you plan to do? I realize that the path of becoming a god isn't worth my attention. I'm researching another path. In fact, the 23rd generation Blood Mary felt that the path to godhood was too weak compared to the other three monsters. Chen Zhao's power system existed for battle. She couldn't compare to someone like Zhang Tianyi, who used Dharma as a foundation and then walked his own path. Even Bifla was a latecomer. Of course, Bifla's path couldn't be replicated. He'd used his centuries of knowledge to get to where he was today. That was why he could catch up so quickly. He was even catching up to Zhang Tianyi. 23rd Blood Mary didn't have a choice, so she took a huge detour. She walked the path of becoming a god. But she soon realized something. The speed limit was already on this path, and the end was right in front of her. Other than allowing her to live a long time, she no longer pursued the mysteries of magic. 23rd Blood Mary wasn't just a strong person. She had always been curious about power and mysteries. It was a road that had no new ideas, and the end could already be seen. It couldn't satisfy her at all, so she chose to find a new path, a path that was suitable for him, a path that could catch up to them. This battle had already exposed many problems. The Olympian gods were also deities. Although they were weak, it was also proof of this. Compared to freaks like Chen Zhao, Zhang Tianyi, and Bifla, they were nothing. They were too weak. He was also too weak. This was also the reason why she was determined to open up a new path for herself. In the end, Chen Zhao traded with 23rd Blood Mary. Then the search continued. There were still quite a number of divine souls and divine treasures left here, a broken fragment of the divine kingdom. He even found an orb that contained a complete soul of Athena, although it was hidden very well. But Chen Zhao still managed to dig it out. The old dark serum seeped into every crevice. Even palaces hidden deep underground could be infiltrated by Chen Zhao. If an ordinary person had found this orb, they would have died. Athena could take over the body of an ordinary person. Then she would find a chance to recover her divine power and body. But after Chen Zhao found her, Athena couldn't do anything. What a joke! She couldn't do anything to Chen Zhao under normal circumstances, not to mention Athena, who only had a soul left. They searched for 10 days. Everyone basically made a lot of money. Of course, the youngsters weren't so lucky. But to make it up to them, Chen Zhao and the other 3 still compensated those who didn't get anything. Back in Los Angeles, life was peaceful again. Frigga still came to teach the 2 kids every day. Chen Zhao was refining the chaotic energy. As the chaotic energy was refined, it turned into clear air and entered the small world. The laws of the small world became clearer and more complete. Chun Zhao's small world was a world of flames, but now the flames were buried under the ground. This energy also brought life to the earth. The earth was changing by itself. The world was changing. The stars moved. The earth was turning into a ball, a giant planet. Of course, the so-called giant was only relative to humans. Compared to a real planet, it was just a grain of rice. Chun Zhao didn't think that his body would produce a planet with a diameter of 100 kilometers. According to scientific standards, 100 kilometers wasn't even a planet. Half of the flames were hidden inside the planet. The other half gathered in the sky, forming a sun. It revolved around the planet. Yes, it wasn't that the planet revolved around the sun. Instead, the sun revolved around the planet. Chun Zhao named the planet in his body the primeval star. Outside the primeval star and the sun was chaos. When Chun Zhao injected life into it, the primeval star started reproducing. For Chun Zhao, it might only be an instant, but for the primeval star, decades had passed. Chun Zhao suddenly felt that the primeval star, or the small world, was the same as the river diagram. They could both make Chun Zhao feel the separation of time. If that was the case, was the river diagram someone else's small world? The more Chun Zhao thought about it, the more likely it seemed. The river diagram was the treasure of the great goddess Nuwa. In that case, it was very likely that this legendary ancestor of the human race was an existence that was at least at his level. Of course, she would only be stronger and greater than him. Chun Zhao didn't think that he could compare to goddess Nuwa. Even he couldn't compare to goddess Nuwa, turning the small world into a divine artifact. After a day of cultivation, Feilai also went home. "Darling, prepare a light dinner for me today. I don't have an appetite." "Okay." Chun Zhao looked at Feilai. "Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Let me take a look." "No, I just don't have an appetite," Feilai said. Just then, the TV broadcasted an urgent piece of news. A huge magic array appeared in the center of Los Angeles. At the same time, a magic array appeared on the screen. It was above the skyscrapers. At the same time, Chun Zhao's phone rang. "President, did you see the news?" "Yes, I did. Do you know what's going on?" "Not yet. I'm bringing people over now." Chapter 3298. West had already rushed to the scene with his men. At the same time, he had sealed off the scene. However, they could only seal off the road. From a distance, they could still see the inverted magic array in the sky. Moreover, the American media was not so obedient. It was obviously big news. So, several helicopters were hovering in the distance, filming the scene. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the huge magic array in the sky. "Can you find the center of the magic array?" "I can't. This magic array doesn't seem to have a center." "How can it not have a center?" "It's a magic array," West said. If they couldn't find the center, they couldn't find the person who released the magic array. Looking up at the sky, Helios frowned. Such a huge magic array was rare, but they couldn't sense any mana fluctuations from it. It was very strange. Logically speaking, such a large-scale magic array should have terrifying mana fluctuations. However, the inverted magic array in the sky was more like a high beam of light shining in the sky. "Be careful. There's a change." Just then, the magic array in the sky began to change. Gradually, a black egg emerged from the magic array. The black egg was just showing. Everyone tensed up. After all, they didn't know what was going on. Moreover, things had gotten out of control. The media had already exposed it. The black egg slowly fell from the magic array. It was a huge black egg about 10 meters tall. The black egg slowly fell to the ground, and the magic array in the sky disappeared. Everyone approached the black egg carefully. The black egg didn't react. No monster crawled out of egg. Everyone was at a loss. "Mr. West, what do we do now?" "Move this thing away first." Move it away. How to move it? Gaia in his dragon form didn't move. The huge black egg just floated there, but it seemed to weigh more than 1,000 pounds. Helios summoned the corpse demon refined by the abyss demon. Still, the huge black egg couldn't be moved. No. Let's see if we can destroy the egg. Everyone tried to destroy the black egg again, but they still couldn't. No matter what kind of attack they used, it seemed to be ineffective against the egg. They worked from afternoon to night. There's nothing we can do. No, we really can't do it. What is this thing? Looks like we can only call the chairman. Everyone was helpless. Since they couldn't solve this problem, now he could only ask Qin Zhao for help. After all, it had already affected the lives of the citizens. If the black egg remained here, the area would have to be sealed off. This wasn't some desolate wilderness. This was the center of the city. Even they couldn't seal off this area forever. Furthermore, no one knew what was going on with the black egg. Was there any danger? If the lockdown is lifted, once something happened, it was very likely to cause great damage or death. Even they couldn't bear this responsibility. West picked up his phone and dialed Chen Zhao's number. Hello, President. It's Fei Lai said. Chen's already asleep. That's weird. He usually picks up the phone as soon as it rings. Why is he sleeping so soundly today? Fei Lai, can you help us wake up the president? We have something urgent to talk to him about. Fei Lai thought for a moment and said, All right. Honey, wake up. Chin, wake up. West is looking for you. Fei Lai tried for a long time, but Qin Zhao still wouldn't wake up. Sorry, West. I can't wake him up. Fei Lai was a bit worried. Did something happen to Qin Zhao? Qin Zhao had never been like this before. Fei Lai wasn't from the spiritual world, but the people around her were all spiritualists. She'd also interacted with many people and things in the spiritual world. So, she still knew about spiritualists at Qin Zhao's level. Basically, their senses were very powerful. Even if they were asleep, they could still sense their surroundings. There was no situation where they couldn't be woken up. But now, Qin Zhao just couldn't wake him up. Can you call someone over? I'm a bit worried about Qin. West was confused. The matter here hadn't been resolved yet. Qin Zhao was in trouble again, but now he could only go over to see what was going on with Qin Zhao. When they arrived at Qin Zhao's house, Fei Lai brought West and the others to the bedroom. Everyone tried to wake Qin Zhao up, but Qin Zhao was really asleep. They couldn't wake him up at all. Heartbeat is normal. Temperature is normal. Breathing is normal. The president's body is normal. That's the most abnormal part, Gaia said. Even in my current state, my breathing and heartbeat are very different from normal people. Qin Zhao is so much stronger than me. He can't still maintain a normal temperature, heartbeat, and breathing. West shook his head. The president adjusted himself. He's always like this. Adjusted himself? Like this? Why? The president said that this is a way to control his power. Because he's too strong, he has to get used to his state more precisely. Controlling his body is also a type of regular training. So he's still like this? That means he hasn't lost control of his body. If he's really unconscious, then this control should disappear. West nodded. But I don't know why the president isn't waking up. Harold thought for a moment and said, Should we call Norma over? She has a way to enter people's dreams. Maybe she can find out about the president's current condition. West shook his head. It's useless. Norma can't enter the president's dream. The difference between them is too great. Even if she can enter the president's dream, she can't wake him up. The gap between them can't be bridged. What do we do now? Are we going to find a doctor in this situation? A doctor can't solve the problem either. We have to figure out what's wrong with the president first. West looked at Fei Lai, who had a worried look on her face. Fei Lai, does the president have any symptoms today? Everything was normal before dinner. After dinner, Qin kept watching the news on TV. It's about you guys dealing with the huge black egg in the city. But halfway through, he suddenly said he was sleepy and went to sleep. Wes noticed what Feilai said. She said that Qin Zhao was sleepy? This was a big problem. Would Qin Zhao be sleepy? If Qin Zhao didn't want to sleep, he definitely wanted to sleep. But it was ridiculous to say that he was sleepy. Chapter 3299. Just when they couldn't come to a conclusion, Qin Zhao suddenly opened his eyes. Why are you all here? Qin Zhao sat up. Feilai went up and hugged him. Darling, you scared me. Qin Zhao patted her back. Darling, I'm fine. President. Qin Zhao stood up and nodded. Feilai glanced at everyone and said, I'll go make some food for you. Qin Zhao and the rest of the supernatural organization all went to the living room. President, are you okay? I'm fine. Qin Zhao smiled. I know why you guys came to find me. You know. Yes. Don't worry about the black egg. I'll take care of it. Is the black egg dangerous? No, Qin Zhao said. President, you know where it came from. Yes. Anyway, don't worry about it. It's a gift from someone. It's not a gift. Qin Zhao's expression was strange. Everyone was even more confused. They felt that Qin Zhao was weird. Feilai, I'm going out for a bit. Are you sure you're okay? Don't worry. I'm fine. Qin Zhao stood up and left the manor with everyone. When they reached the city center, Qin Zhao alighted. Just then, the black egg buzzed and suddenly shook. Then it came before Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao reached out and touched it gently. Standing before it, Qin Zhao looked very small. Let's go home, Qin Zhao said in a low voice. The black egg buzzed again. Everyone was a little stunned. They couldn't do anything about the black egg. It was so obedient before Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao's strength was obvious to all. But wasn't it too obedient? Qin Zhao brought the black egg back home. First, there were the pets at home. All of them started to get restless. They all stared at the egg warily. Only Samuel pushed himself up and jumped onto the wall. He looked at Qin Zhao and the egg. After a few glances, he lost interest and went back to his cat nest. Qin Zhao guessed that Samuel saw something. But it wasn't strange. It would be strange if he couldn't see it. Qin, is that the black egg in the news? Yes. It looks bigger than the one on TV. Yes. Qin Zhao nodded. What is it? Is it dangerous to the children at home? Qin Zhao scratched his head. Remember that thing I told you? What thing? Feilai didn't understand what Qin Zhao was referring to. About me, another woman besides you. It's a demon, and it doesn't exist in this world. That's the problem. It's our child. Qin Zhao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Qin Zhao had told Feilai about him and burial. It was something that existed in dreams. Or it could be said that the soul had cheated. Every time Qin Zhao entered the dream, he would be dragged into hell by burial. And this egg was the child he had with Beryl. That's right. This was a hybrid between human and devil. But that was where the problem lay. This black egg was not pregnant with a demon. It was a human. From Beryl's perception, their child was an ordinary human child with no talent at all. This was also why Belphegor had sent the child to Qin Zhao. Humans could not survive in hell. At the very least, this kind of untalented human child. Unless Beryl protected the child forever. But Beryl clearly wouldn't do that. Humans belonged to the human world. Feilai wasn't jealous, because she had never seen Beryl as a love rival. After all, she had always thought that her man was having an erotic dream. But now, in his erotic dream, he actually had a child. This was rather awkward. Feilai sorted out her emotions. What do we do now? I mean, this your child. I don't know. She didn't even tell me when the child will come out. Is it a boy or a girl? I don't know. Qin Zhao still didn't know anything. Then should we cover him if it's windy or raining? In the end, Qin Zhao still covered the black egg with a curtain. Feilai felt strange. Her man had cheated on a demon from hell. Then there was only one egg left. She actually wanted to express her emotions. For example, jealousy. But after thinking for a long time, she couldn't form such an emotion. If Chen Zhao cheated on a woman in real life, Fei Lai would definitely be furious with Qin Zhao. Maybe they would go their separate ways. However, she found the current situation more comical. In the first few days, Qin Zhao and Fei Lai both paid attention to the black egg. But ever since the egg came to her house in the manor, there was no more movement. After that, Qin Zhao and Fei Lai didn't pay much attention to the child. On the other hand, little Larissa and little Jerlin played around the egg every day. Frigga, do you know what's going on? The crystals produced between different races will always produce all sorts of strange things. Humans and gods, humans and demons, demons and gods, humans and dragons, dragons and demons, dragons and gods. Plus, you're not a normal human, so no one knows what kind of child you and demons will have. I don't know when this black egg will hatch either. Chen Zhao was somewhat disappointed. He had hoped that the knowledgeable Frigga could give him some guidance. But Frigga didn't know much about this either. Qin Zhao was quite helpless too. But so far, Chen Zhao's curiosity was more than his concern. He couldn't help it. It was hard for anyone to have other emotions towards an egg, even if the egg was his child. Chen Zhao tried to love his third child as much as he loved little Jerlin and little Larissa. But he really couldn't help it. Emotions could only be produced by interacting with someone. He definitely couldn't feel anything for an egg. His mother said he's an ordinary child. Even gods can't predict every child's talent. Demons can't either. Frigga looked at Chen Zhao. Do you want this child to be ordinary or extraordinary? If there are no other children in the family, I want him to be an ordinary child, Chen Zhao said. But now, all the kids in my family have extraordinary abilities. I actually hope that he has his own talent too. Qin Zhao said, but Chen Zhao didn't have the final say on awakening talent. Take Fei Lai, for example. She really wanted to become a spiritualist, but she didn't have this talent and hadn't awakened it. Even Qin Zhao couldn't change this result. He could give Fei Lai extraordinary abilities, but this wasn't a good idea and it wouldn't have a good result. So Chen Zhao never did this. Chapter 30, 300. In this society, special people were the minority, but in this family, ordinary people were the minority. Chen Zhao hoped that the child would be capable and talented, not an ordinary person. Do you have a way for ordinary people to obtain abilities? Qin Zhao asked. Frigg glanced at him. Don't you have one too? Why are you asking me? You and I both know the answer. Qin Zhao fell silent. Of course, it was possible for ordinary people to obtain abilities, at least for the current Chen Zhao. But there had to be a price to give something. Maybe it's lifespan, maybe it's something else. Qin Zhao shook his head. Forget it. The child wasn't even born yet. There was no need to think so much. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. Theoretically, the more powerful the parents are, the harder it is to have offspring. But similarly, the more powerful the parents are, the harder it is to have mediocre offspring. At this moment, a car arrived outside the door. You have a guest. Qin Zhao nodded. The car had already entered the gate. Hi, Qin. Stephen alighted from the car. Qin Zhao greeted him too. Stephen suddenly realized that there was a huge black egg floating behind Qin Zhao. Huh, what's that? Is it the thing from yesterday's news? Why is it here? Did you forget? I'm an expert at dealing with these things. Fine. Why are you here today? I'm here to see you. Do I need a reason to come? You don't need a reason to visit me, but you definitely won't come during your busiest time. Last time, you didn't even have time to call. I've already edited 3 episodes, Stephen said. We can find a TV station and video platform to broadcast it now. Actually, with Stephen's fame and commercial value, even if he didn't film anything, people would still invest. They might even sell it for a good price. But Stephen clearly didn't want to do that. He preferred to edit the finished product first. Then he would sell it for a good price. Of course, he also believed that his work could be sold for a better price. Today, Stephen had come with a sample for Chen Zhao to see. The 3 episodes of the documentary started with Priest Wu. First, Stephen entered the camera and met his old friend, Priest Wu. During their conversation, Stephen saw a statue of a strange beast. From Priest Wu's explanation, Stephen also learned about the existence of Tongyu. The first episode only gave Tongyu a glimpse. However, in this episode, the function of the prison was already explained, guarding the cracks of hell and preventing existences filled with malice towards humans from entering the human world. This episode led to the main storyline of the story, and at the same time, it made the audience interested in the story. This was because most of the people in the world only knew about the spiritual world, but they didn't know much about it. Therefore, people were filled with curiosity about the supernatural world. Stephen's 2 documentaries in a row were actually reaping this bonus. The market was short of resources, and he had the resources in this area. Therefore, as long as the filming was not bad, there was almost no loss. Plus Stephen's fame. Naturally, it would generate even more topics of discussion. Chen Zhao watched all 3 episodes. Even if he knew the entire plot of the story, he was still interested in the content that followed, not to mention those who had not read the main storyline. So, Chen Zhao still made some comments from the audience's perspective. I've already released the news. In a few days, there will be TV stations coming to discuss buying the broadcasting rights. I've given the broadcasting rights to China to Wang. He's more familiar with China than me. With the Amman chapter as a foundation, this Tongyu chapter would definitely be more expensive than the Amman chapter. After all, the social impact of the Amman chapter was immeasurable. It was far more than what the TV stations had bought it for. This time, Chen Zhao and Stephen were prepared to make a fortune. As for the negotiations, Chen Zhao didn't have to worry about them. Stephen had a more professional team. Chen, remember what we talked about before? We're going to form a world supernatural fighting league. Yes. Have you contacted the Heavenly Master? Yes, I've contacted him. There's also Bifla and 23rd Blood Mary. We've contacted them, but they asked me to form a team first. Nonsense. Forming a team isn't a problem for us at all. We only need a phone call to form a top-notch team. As the initiator, you are an outsider. Of course, they won't agree to it so easily. You must at least have a team of your own and then contact them to discuss the competition. Of course, I know that. I've actually been looking for suitable spiritualists these few days. I've already found 12 people, but I don't know if they're suitable. Stephen looked at Chen Zhao. Clearly, he wasn't here to give Chen Zhao a sample of the documentary. He wanted Chen Zhao to be his laborer and help him vet those people. Sure, Chen Zhao nodded. But you said last time that to form a league, we have to have a clear division of levels. Right now, there's no such division in the spiritual world. It's basically divided by realms. There's also some difference between the levels in the East and the West. How do you think it should be divided? First, the level represents the level of the league. Just like basketball, there's a middle school league, high school league, the NCAA, and the NBA. You're definitely not going to form a low-level league, so you need to find a top spiritualist. You need to set a standard and determine the spiritualist's level based on their magical power, defense, and attack. Chen Zhao paused. Chen Zhao paused and then said, I can provide a device to test magic power. First, eliminate those with too much magic power. Those with more than 100,000 are super powerful and not suitable for the competition. They'll affect the balance of the competition too much. There are too few spiritualists like this, and they can't be lower than 50,000. Their magic power is the most suitable in this area. At the same time, we'll test their defense and attack power, as well as their initial combat power and team composition. This will also be fun for the audience. They can't participate in the competition themselves, but they can have fun through discussion and tactical analysis. Plus, the intense and exciting battles will attract the audience. Chen Zhao paused and then said, I can provide a device to test magic power. Chin, you can be my team's coach and partner in the league. You know that I'm an outsider. I don't know anything about this. Take a look at the members of your team first. See how good your judgment is. Chapter 3301. Chin Zhao and Stephen arrived outside one of his private properties. There were about 10 people in the villa. Actually, Stephen had already made a preliminary selection. Those who were left were the ones that Stephen thought were suitable. Of course, Stephen knew that he was an outsider. He also knew that his judgment might not be accurate. When Chen Zhao and Stephen entered the villa, the first thing they heard was the hustle and bustle of men and women. This used to be one of Stephen's high-end private properties, but now it looked like a bar at midnight. There was also a statue in front of the villa. Only half of it was left. Chen Zhao and Stephen's faces darkened. After a turn, they saw a few men and women frolicking by the pool. One of them hugged each other and started nibbling as if no one else was around. Cough, cough, Stephen coughed. Only then did everyone notice Stephen and Chen Zhao's arrival. But no one was willing to pay attention to Stephen. Hi, Mr. Stephen, you're here, a black guy shouted, raising his glass. Vincent, can you help me gather everyone here for a moment? Okay, guys, our boss is here. Come over. Following the black man's shouts, the spiritualists came one after another. Why are there only 8? Where are the other 2? Fuck, Derek Bear, come out quickly. Just then, a man and a woman walked out of the house in disheveled clothes. The woman's face was still red. Needless to say, they knew what they had just done. Guys, this is the coach I hired for you. From now on, you'll be under him. Oh, I thought I was the coach. Mr. Stephen, I don't like people restricting me, especially when they didn't discuss it with me. These people were already familiar with each other, so when this person spoke, the others immediately agreed. Chen Zhao looked at the man who had spoken. He was in his 40s and had a big beard. Chen Zhao stared at him for a while, as if thinking about something. What are you looking at? I'll twist your head off if you keep looking. Big Beard stared at Chen Zhao fiercely. You're Chris Sun Pale? Chen Zhao asked. Big Beard's expression changed. He's not Chris Sun Peel. He's Li Weika. Stephen thought that Chen Zhao had gotten the wrong person. However, Chen Zhao shook his head. He didn't get it wrong. His expression says it all. Everyone was confused, not understanding what Chen Zhao meant. Just then, the bearded man suddenly charged at Chen Zhao. But in the next moment, the bearded man was sent flying. At the same time, his neck was ripped off. Ah! Everyone looked at the corpses that were like a fountain and screamed in fright. Even Stephen stared at Chen Zhao in disbelief, even if he was dissatisfied with the situation here. But it wasn't to the point of killing people. He felt that killing was going too far. Chin, why are you? Crimson Peel, Chen Zhao said calmly. He's charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of sexually assaulting an underage girl. He's also an extremely dangerous fire spiritualist. In the spiritual world, he's a wanted criminal that can be killed on sight. There's no need for any warning. At the same time, he threw the head and the body into the swimming pool. At this time, everyone finally stopped laughing. They all looked at him nervously. Clearly, Chen Zhao was different from them. None of them had actually killed someone before. But Chen Zhao had killed someone right in front of them, expressionlessly, and in such a cruel way. Stephen, next time when you choose people, you better investigate everyone's identity first. Stephen gulped, but he quickly calmed down. He knew that Chen Zhao was like a police officer in the spiritual world. So he trusted Chen Zhao a lot. It was just that the scene just now made him feel uncomfortable. You, and you. The 4 of you come out. The 4 people Chen Zhao had pointed out stood out, trembling. Chen Zhao took out his wallet and stuffed $1,000 into one of their hands. Split the money among the 4 of you, then pack up and scram. Chen, I chose them carefully, Stephen said immediately. I've seen their spells. They're very powerful. Mr. Stephen, are you sure you want to interfere with my decision? Fine, you call the shots here. Qin Zhao nodded and continued, You come out. Qin Zhao pointed at the black man, Vincent. Vincent stood out. Hit me with your strongest spell. Sir, are you sure? Hurry up. Vincent took a few steps back. His palms started turning black. A beam of black light shot out of Vincent's palms. Stephen almost fell to the ground in fear. He'd seen Vincent use this move before. He'd blasted a hole in a wall. So he was afraid of seeing a tragedy. But the result he feared didn't happen. Qin Zhao stood where he was, unharmed. The black light didn't even touch Qin Zhao. Okay, go stand over there, Qin Zhao said. You come out. Qin Zhao started calling out the remaining people one by one. There were 10 people in total. At the start, Qin Zhao broke one's neck. Then another 4 scrammed. Vincent, the black boy, was the only one left standing among the remaining 5. The other 4 stood in a group. Give the 4 of them $10,000 each, Qin Zhao said. Then you can scram. What? Why? You can't do this. Your test isn't accurate at all. The 4 started complaining. They'd clearly forgotten that Qin Zhao had just killed someone. They couldn't help it. Stephen had treated them too well. They didn't want to leave at all. Qin, isn't it bad to leave only one person? Stephen couldn't help but ask. Why don't you reconsider? Actually, according to my standards, this kid should leave too, but he has potential, so he'll stay for now. As for the 4 of them, they don't have potential or strength. Are you sure you want to keep them? Fine. Stephen shrugged. Qin Zhao didn't care about their complaints. His expression darkened, scaring the 4 away. Qin, what about the rest? Hire again. What else can we do? Qin Zhao rolled his eyes. He didn't know where Stephen got his confidence from. He actually thought that his judgment was good enough. He didn't even know what the selection criteria were. To think that he could actually choose 10 people so well. In the end, none of them were useful. The other was an extremely vicious, wanted criminal. The other 4 were complete hooligans. They'd probably have kidney failure after casting 2 spells. So Qin Zhao gave them $1,000 and told them to scram. The other 4 weren't strong, but they had some ability in the spiritual world. But they were worthless. They were all over 35 years old and had no potential. The remaining black guy, Vincent, wasn't strong, but he had some potential. This was why Qin Zhao kept him. Chapter 3302. First, you have to find someone who meets the requirements. You can't just release the news through underground channels. Then what do we do? Stephen asked. Have them release the announcement together, of course. Only when it causes enough of a commotion can we build it. But we don't even have a team right now. And the rules aren't perfect. Isn't it too rushed to release the announcement in such a hurry? Even if you quit now, I'll follow, Qin Zhao said. You're that optimistic about this league? It's a brand new league, so the profits can't be estimated, but it's worth investing in. Stephen thought about it. Indeed, it was like baseball, soccer, and basketball leagues. The economic benefits and influence generated by these leagues around the world were immeasurable. Compared to the benefits and influence, that bit of risk seemed to be nothing. What's the requirement for the venue? Regular stadiums won't do. First, it has to be in the wild. But the wild also involves spectator mode, so it's best if it's an outdoor stadium. This kind of stadium will be much more expensive than regular stadiums. Of course. How much cash do you have? Most of last year's income is in the bank. I think it's about $20 billion. I don't know the exact amount, but if it's not enough, I still have a batch of gold worth $10 billion. Qin Zhao didn't know how much money he had in his bank account because it was divided into several cards. Therefore, he didn't really check his balance. It would increase quite a bit every month. As time went by, Qin Zhao was too lazy to check. I can take out about $2 billion. I want at least 20% of the shares. If I don't have enough cash, you can lend it to me. Chen Zhao and Stephen couldn't take all the shares. The scale of the league this time was destined to be huge, so the profits had to be distributed too. Chen Zhao and Stephen would at most have 51% of the shares. The remaining shares had to be distributed. As for how much the other dealers could take, that was up to them. Invest in the construction of 4 stadiums first. It's best if they're in different regions and environments. America definitely needs one. Where do you think it should be built? Forest land is cheap. Forests also have complex and diverse environments. It's very interesting for supernatural fights. Aren't we going to set up a single elimination tournament? I've participated in a few paranormal competitions. Regardless of whether I'm a participant, a spectator, or a judge, I've always found that fighting in the arena isn't as exciting as fighting in the wild. You can set up an arena, but the arena can be used as an exhibition match. Regular competitions should still be held in the wild. Stephen nodded. I'll pay for the funds first, and then we'll split the shares. The 2 of us will take 51%, and we must maintain the same opinion. I'll listen to you. Chen Zhao was clearly more professional and had more authority. In fact, Chen Zhao was the one who came up with this idea. Stephen wanted to do it himself at first. However, he soon realized that he couldn't do it alone. He did not have enough capital, nor did he have enough connections. Even his eyesight and operation were not up to standard. For example, in this election, Chen Zhao had killed one of the 10 candidates. The remaining one could only be considered a substitute. The next day, Stephen released the news through his personal social media account. The league would be called the Supernatural Combat League. Currently, there was no division of ranks, only the highest rank. At the same time, Stephen released the news. Dragon Tiger Mountain Celestial Master Sect, Mao Mountain Celestial Master Sect, Kunlun, Japan's Divine Path Sect, Fire Worship Sect, Scarlet Church, and Cross Church all Stephen's social media account at the same time, announcing their participation in the Supernatural Combat League. This was an official announcement, announcing the establishment of the World League. Whether it was for ordinary people or the supernatural world, it caused a huge uproar. Stephen's influence didn't need to be mentioned. As for the organizations and religions that announced their participation in the Supernatural Combat League, they were all the top religions and supernatural organizations in the world. Their influence could only be higher than Stephen's. So far, including Stephen and Chen Zhao, 8 teams had confirmed that they would be participating. Just these 8 definitely weren't enough. They needed more organizations to join. However, the prerequisite was that they couldn't have a political background, at least not on the surface. This was a very pure and commercial league, and it was open to the entire world. Once a country's political power got involved, in that case, the religious organizations of other countries would inevitably be involved by their own political forces. For a moment, both in the supernatural world and on social media, they were all discussing the Supernatural Combat League. Even the mainstream media were discussing it. After that, Stephen issued another recruitment order. Of course, it wasn't a recruitment order, but it was more like a recruitment advertisement. The other top echelon religions and supernatural organizations also issued enlistment orders at the same time. A league couldn't just use their own people. If they were all from the same organization, there would be no diversity in the battles. It would be very disadvantageous, and they would lose a lot of fun too. For example, the Church of the Cross or Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master Sect. If you asked them to find 100 qualified people, they could do it in minutes. But 100 people using the same spells wouldn't be as interesting as a fight between 10 people using different spells. The audience would analyze the contestants' individual abilities, attributes, and magic system, and then match them. This would greatly increase the audience's participation. Stephen didn't have as many connections in the supernatural world as those large sections, but he was still very influential. So many people from the supernatural world sent in their resumes. Of course, Qin Zhao was in charge of screening the resumes. He might miss out on some high-level candidates, but there were too many people. The first step was to screen the resumes. After screening the resumes, the second step was to send them the chance to interview. After a month of busy work, Qin Zhao finally picked out 50 people from the many applicants for an actual interview. The construction of the 4 supernatural combat arenas had also begun. One was America's Telgate Forest in California, covering an area of 20 square kilometers. The other was China's Big Mystery Island and Japan's Greenwood Forest. Of course, Qin Zhao had planned for Big Mystery Island. The other one was the famous Holy Castle in Europe. Rather than calling it a castle, it was more like a ghost town. During the Black Death era, the entire city died of the disease. Qin Zhao gathered the 50 candidates and started the face-to-face assessment. Chapter 3303. The magic power level of the 50 applicants was at least 30,000 points. This mana value was a standard set by several forces after discussion. Each team couldn't have more than 20 members, including substitutes. Of course, reserve and trainees weren't restricted. Every member had to have at least 30,000 points of magic power. After all, it was a high-level competition. Thus, they had to ensure the competition's viewability and standard. Thus, 30,000 points of magic power was the minimum requirement. Under normal circumstances, the first team members all had between 50,000 and 100,000 points of magic power. 50,000 to 100,000 points of magic power was already the highest standard. Above that was half a step into the Shangqing realm. Half a step into the Shangqing realm wasn't allowed to participate. The main reason was that there were too few half a step into the Shangqing realm. If every team had 1 or 2 Shangqing realm experts, it wouldn't be a problem. It was good to be able to display a higher level of battle and more exciting competition. But if a team had a half step into the Shangqing realm and the other teams didn't have a member of the same level, then there would be almost no suspense. In that case, there was almost no suspense in their victory. Half-step Shangqing realm could not be the standard for every team. This would make it easier for strong teams to attract half a step into the Shangqing realm. Strong teams would get stronger and weak teams weaker. Once the competition lost suspense, the viewability would be greatly reduced. Thus, they just banned half a step into the Shangqing realm from participating. Now, 32 teams had been gathered. Apart from Africa, all the other regions had formed teams. This was equivalent to giving up on the African market. Africa didn't have the conditions to host the competition. There wasn't enough market either. Plus, there would be regional chaos. If they got involved in Africa, they might be affected by politics. Thus, they gave up on the Africa market. Of course, spiritualists from the African spiritual world could join any team as external help. As long as they were strong enough, any team was welcome. Qin Zhao glanced at the applicants before him. The 50 applicants all had the minimum requirement of magic power. Their ages ranged from 50 to 20. This was also the competition's rule. The oldest was 50 and the youngest was 20. Both the main team and the reserve had to be within the age range. Of course, the requirements were different for the two age groups. If they were in their 40s or 50s, their magic power would still be around 30,000 to 40,000. Then they would basically be eliminated. There was no need to think further. At this age, their potential was almost used up. If he was still at this age, he couldn't still be nurtured as a substitute, right? But if it was a 20-year-old young man, his mana value was between 30,000 and 40,000, which was still acceptable. There are advantages to being older. He had enough experience, foundation, and knowledge. If one's strength was up to standard and their mana value could reach more than 80,000, they would basically be able to pass. Even Qin Zhao couldn't be stingy. Of course, there couldn't be too many of these characters. After all, they were not forming a retirement team. There must be enough young people. Young people are more energetic and ambitious. "I'm the coach of the storm," Qin Zhao said. Among these 50 people, there were those who were not convinced, but there were also those who knew their place and were honest. Many of them were older than Qin Zhao. Of course, not everyone approved of him. Those who are not convinced can step forward now. If you can defeat me, you can immediately get a place in the main team and get a top salary. 3 people stood up on the spot. One was 30, and the other 2 were almost 50. Qin Zhao looked at the information. One of them was also an Asian. His name was Shiro Hakashiro, 48 years old, Japanese. Shinkong Dao. He was good at shikigami and swordsmanship. The other was from Oceania. Thibaut Mavizi. He was 45 years old. He didn't belong to any sect. He was good at divination, investigation, and petrifying puppets. The 30-year-old was from South America. His name was Kincampra. He was Latino. He was a shaman. He was good at support and investigation. You can work together. You can prepare whatever you want, Qin Zhao said. If they didn't work together, Kincampra wouldn't even be able to fight. After all, he wasn't good at fighting. Qin Zhao had high hopes for him. In some special tactics, he could play an extremely good role. Kincampra immediately cast Berserk, Bloodthirst, and Burning Battle on the other 2. At the same time, he set up a totem, Elemental Dispersal. It dispelled all the elements around Qin Zhao. Mavizi and Shiro Hakashiro glanced at each other. Mavizi used his strongest petrifying puppet. A 10-meter-tall stone giant stood up. Shiro Hakashiro summoned a sword out of thin air. Hakuei Shoshiro summoned 2 more spirit-branded retainers. These 2 spirit-branded shikigami looked exactly the same as Hakuei Hashiro, and they also summoned a sword. These 2 were the famous Japanese shikigami, easily lost demons. They could imitate the appearance and magic abilities of their enemies or their master. 3 Shiro charged at Qin Zhao. At the same time, the petrifying puppet attacked Qin Zhao first. Boom! The puppet's fist smashed in front of Qin Zhao, but the stone puppet's fist stopped before Qin Zhao. At this moment, the 3 Shiro Hakashiro simultaneously slashed out with their swords. Although they could imitate each other's abilities, it was obvious from the strength of the attacks that the 3 were stronger. The main body's attack power was the highest, while the 2 volatile demons transformed into Hakashiro's attack power was obviously much weaker. Of course, Shiro Hakashiro himself was a top expert. After Kincampa's strengthening, they all had a temporary increase in combat power, but the attack still couldn't touch Qin Zhao. Everyone was shocked. Qin Zhao seemed to be ridiculously strong. He didn't even move against such a powerful attack. He blocked it. Qin Zhao didn't move at all. The 3 of them were under his control. Qin Zhao recognized Shiro's ability. He could be an official member. As for Kincampra, he was slightly weaker. It wasn't because he was a support, but because his support spell didn't make Qin Zhao's eyes light up. Mavizi didn't show his true ability, so Qin Zhao couldn't judge. Okay, if you admit this result, you admit that you lost. Can you recognize me as your coach now? The 3 nodded. Qin Zhao didn't make things difficult for them and let them return to the team. Seeing Qin Zhao's ability, the others didn't have any objections. A coach didn't have to be unreachable. However, a strong person as a coach would definitely have more say. The 3 of them with such outstanding abilities couldn't shake Qin Zhao even when they worked together. Qin Zhao's ability must be extraordinary. Chapter 3304. An interview was over. There were still a few people who didn't agree with Qin Zhao's judgment. Of course, a battle was unavoidable. Finally, he finished the interview. Of course, 30 out of 50 people would be chosen as official members. The probability of passing was quite high. No, it should be 29. Qin Zhao had left one as a substitute. Qin Zhao signed the contract for them. This contract was not only legally binding, but also magically binding. Since they were playing for real, they naturally had to follow the proper procedures. The next step was to deal with the matters of the 4 arenas. Qin Zhao went to find Felwood Scott. They were all old acquaintances, and it was a big project. Besides, Felwood Scott's construction quality was guaranteed. Felwood Scott naturally gave him a friendly price. He had saved tens of millions of dollars. These tens of millions of USD were not a lot for the overall investment. He had heard that this project was for the Supernatural Combat League. Hearing that Qin Zhao was a major shareholder, Felwood Scott also wanted to invest some money. Qin Zhao gave him a small share. After all, Felwood was an outsider with no connections or influence. Giving him a 1% share was already a lot. Qin, did you see the viewership report I sent you? Not yet. I don't understand it either. So far, 4 episodes have been aired. The highest ratings for the second season have already reached the highest ratings for the first season. The average ratings have also surpassed last year's average. Only 4 episodes have been aired. It's too early to talk about the average viewership. No, we haven't even reached the climax yet, but we've already reached the peak of the first season. This means that the audience is increasing, which is a good sign. How's the income from this documentary? It's twice as much as the first season. It's a pity I didn't invest in this documentary. Back then, Qin Zhao had given Stephen a chance to invest. Stephen didn't ask for it himself. This time he was purely helping. For the same pay, the number of people inviting him to film could line up from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Now, Stephen was synonymous with success. Whatever they filmed would be popular, and whatever they filmed would be profitable. In the past, almost all the documentaries had lost money. But Stephen had opened up a whole new era of documentaries. Of course, it would be an exaggeration to say that he was the one who opened it. He had merely caught up with the spiritual energy tide. The right time, the right place, and the right people allowed him to make it. Qin Zhao was almost done with the matter. He went to the backyard and looked at the black egg. The black egg continued to hover there without any changes. Many times, Qin Zhao almost couldn't help but want to knock it open and see what was inside. But in the end, Qin Zhao resisted the urge. If something went wrong, his son would die young. Qin Zhao touched the eggshell. He could vaguely feel the pulse inside, although it was very, very weak. But that feeling was real. Even Burial didn't know when their child would be born. It might be a year or 10 days, or even decades or centuries. 3 months later, from today onwards, you need to start training. There are less than 3 months until the start of the first season. Qin Zhao looked at the players before him. The oldest was Shiro Hakuei, who was 48 years old, and the youngest was only 21 years old, a native of North America. How much do you know about your current strength? Coach, I want to know what level my strength is in the league, Hakuei Hashiro asked. Your magic power and combat power aren't top-notch, both in the league and in the entire spiritual world. Qin Zhao answered honestly. Your magic power and combat ability are the strongest in our team. But from what I know, quite a few teams have members with more than 95,000 magic power, while yours is only 85,000. Also, your tactics aren't very competitive. You only have 2 years left in your career. If something happens, you might only be able to play 1 season. So, your current position is the on-the-spot strategist. Your best skill is still seeing the big picture, Qin Zhao said. I hope you can be the leader in the first season. As for the others, I still need to see your training results to decide your final tactical positions. Qin Zhao paused and then said, I found 10 people for you to fight. The weakest among them has a magic power of 100,000. Of course, they won't fight you with all their strength. I'll choose the people now. Everyone was in an uproar. Qin Zhao had actually found 10 people with more than 100,000 mana points to spar with them. Were they from other teams? But when they saw the people from the Supernatural organization, they were all shocked. Because this group of people was quite young. The oldest was Gaia. She looked to be in her 30s. As for the others, the youngest might be 18 or 19 years old. Were these people really as strong as Qin Zhao said? Gaia, you'll be in charge of the team. Since it's an away team, you can go in and make arrangements. My team will go in an hour. No need, Gaia said. I feel like I'm bullying them. He could tell the strength of the people before him at a glance. A few of them had magic power, but their skill levels were a bit lacking. No need, Qinzhao said. Just follow the rules. Okay, we'll go in first. After Gaia and the others entered, Qinzhao finally spoke. Don't look down on them just because they're young. The youngest among them, your entire team might not even be a match for her. As for that female T-Rex, she's a descendant of the dragon clan. Of course, she won't transform into her dragon form in this match. Everyone was speechless. They felt that the battle was hopeless. Their combat experience is also very rich. Each of them has been through dozens of battles, and each of them has at least 2 or more battles against calamity-grade enemies. It can be said that whether it is in terms of strength or combat experience, they completely crush all of you. Also, in terms of teamwork, they often cooperate with each other to carry out missions. So, in terms of teamwork, you are far inferior to them. Coach, do we still have a chance of winning? Yes, but very slim. Who are they? I've never heard of such a group in North America. Let's not talk about this. We're not completely helpless. At least, I know their characteristics like the back of my hand. They don't have any information about you. This is also your advantage. Chapter 3305. In terms of Team Storm's strength among the 32 teams, they were at the bottom. Even though they weren't last, they wouldn't be that strong. But they wouldn't be that strong either. The people from the supernatural organization that Chen Zhao had pulled over were sparring partners for Team Storm. The strongest ones in Team Storm are probably only close to the weakest ones in the sparring team. There was another most important factor, and that was experience. Team Storm's battle experience was clearly not as good as the supernatural organization's. In the end, the sparring wasn't worth watching at all. The entire process was a one-on-one battle between Team Storm and Gaia. The only thing worth watching was the duel between Captain Hakuiai and Gaia. After the sparring, Chen Zhao had to train them specifically. After the sparring session, Chen Zhao had to train them specifically. And it was hell. Recently, Chen Zhao had been focusing on Team Storm too. Even at home, Chen Zhao kept watching Team Storm's training videos. He studied each of their battle styles. Another 3 months passed. Chen Zhao could feel that their strength had clearly increased. He also did a few rounds of previews. He also did the drawing of lots for the first season. Steven represented Team Storm and was in charge of drawing lots. Team Storm would be the opening match against Team Fuji of Japan. The entire world was waiting for this match. The first match would be held at Telgate in California, North America. Tens of thousands of media from all over the world would gather at Telgate. As for the normal audience tickets, they'd been sold out long ago. The opening match would start with a large song and dance performance. Various popular stars were invited to sing a few songs on a simple stage. Then it was time to introduce the members of both teams, as well as their general stats and their respective magic attributes. The commentators were 2 experienced people in the supernatural world. They were called Frank and Amin. There was also a professional host who was rather famous in the industry. His name was Dot. The 3 started chatting as soon as the players entered. Frank, this isn't our first time working together, right? Amin and Frank were clearly old acquaintances. But this time we won't be working together on the battlefield but in the hosting world, Amin said, smiling. Masters, in terms of hosting, I'm your senior, right? Dot interrupted. Dot, if you want to be our senior, be careful, or we'll curse you behind your back. You'll never win the lottery for the rest of your life. After a round of interaction between the 3 hosts, the 3 of them got down to business. This is the opening match of the first season of the World Supernatural Tournament. Amen, Frank, what do you have to say about the strength of these 2 teams? Dot was the first to get to the point. Because it's the first round, I can't make a comprehensive analysis. However, based on the names and data, released by the two teams, I can give some of my opinions. A man paused for a moment before continuing. I know the captains of both teams. They're both Japanese. Right now, there's even talk of a civil war in Japan. Shiro Being has an extremely high reputation in Japan's supernatural world, and he's also very powerful. I remember that his most famous action in the supernatural world was when he led the Being family to seal the Guangdong Demon King 13 years ago. As for Team Fuji's captain, Shindo Yuki, although he's young, he's the most outstanding spiritualist of the new generation. Moreover, he has Daitengo, who's also known as the god Shikigami. The hosts analyzed from the captains of both teams to the team members. The configuration of Team Storm from North America is clearly a combination of offense and defense. Their battles are obviously more towards the medium and long term. There's something special about this team, and that's that they're not suited for scattered battles. Team Fuji from Japan belongs to the Hermit Killer style. With 3 invisibility masters and 4 kendo experts, they have extremely powerful destructive power. They'll definitely have the upper hand in small to medium team battles. In addition, the Telgate Arena is filled with forests. Although it's the home ground of Team Storm from North America, it's very suitable for the Hermit Killer style's configuration. Ah man, if you were in their shoes, what do you think of their chances of winning? Team Storm from North America has a 40% chance of winning, while Team Fuji from Japan has a 60% chance of winning. Ah man replied. Now that we're done talking about the players of both teams, let's talk about the coaching teams of both teams. The head coach of Team Fuji from Japan is Zhao Tianshi from Huaxia. Basically, everyone in the spiritual world knows him. He's said to be the future leader of Huaxia's spiritual world under the Heavenly Master. I wonder what kind of price Team Fuji from Japan paid to hire Mr. Zhao. As for the coach of Team Storm from North America, the only information that has been released so far is that he's also from Huaxia. Speaking of which, it's very interesting. The captains of both teams are from Japan, while the head coach is from Huaxia. Do either of you have detailed information on the coach of Team Storm from North America? Not entirely. Zhang Tianshi from Huaxia once mentioned the coach of Team Storm in an interview. He said that they've fought side by side before and that he's a very powerful spiritualist. Although most of the things said in such interviews are just commercial flattery, it's certain that the head coach of Team Storm is definitely not a weakling. The so-called fighting side by side means that they've worked together or fought under Zhang Tianshi's leadership. Even if there's a possibility of commercial flattery, he's definitely not weak. Team Fuji from Japan has already entered the arena. According to the rules, the away teams will enter 30 minutes earlier to familiarize themselves with the arena and deploy first. As you can see, Team Fuji has split their 10 starting members into 4 teams. 2, 3, and 4. Team North America has also entered. They've used 3 teams, 34. There are 20 mana potions in the arena. These are all very important resources in a real battle. Therefore, they'll definitely explore the map first, and then start looking for mana potions. Huh? The 2 teams have met on the northern slope of the forest. Team Fuji has 2 people, while Team North America has 3. They're fighting. Team Fuji has launched a sneak attack first. On the big screen, a terrifying sword light sliced through the air without any warning. The audience gasped. This was something that could only be seen in CGI. But now it was displayed before the tens of thousands of people in the stadium and billions of people around the world. Everyone cried out in alarm. Zhao stared at the big screen. He knew that his team could handle it. Before the official match, they'd trained for surprise attacks countless times. However, this was their first official match, their first confrontation. Zhao was still nervous. If they lost members at the start of the match, it would greatly affect the situation on their side. Right now, Zhao really wanted to do it himself. Boom! A red beam of light hit the sword light from the side. In the smoke, no one gained the upper hand in the first attack. After a brief silence, The audience burst into excited cheers. Chapter 3306. Nothing could be more eye-catching than this scene. No matter how stunning the special effects were, nothing could compare to the realism of this scene. This was also the first public battle in the world of spirits. As soon as the two sides clashed, an intense battle broke out. What a beautiful sword aura. Can Team Bay May dodge it? They dodged it. Wait, that sword aura was aimed at the team members in the back. That was close. Fortunately, Team Bay May activated their shield. Otherwise, they would have lost a member. The battle in the arena was in full swing. The commentator outside was also very excited. The first battle lasted for more than 10 minutes, and it was a high-energy battle. However, neither side seemed to want to lose a member in the first round. Both sides were running low on magic power. They decided to stop for now. They retreated from the battlefield and disappeared into the forest. Let's switch the scene to the other teams and see what they're doing. The commentator continued his work. Just then, the scene changed to an ugly egg-shaped monster. The monster had 3 faces, 3 sides of the egg, and 2 legs. Do you know what this thing is? Come on, you two are the professionals, okay? Although I did some professional tutoring before the competition, this is clearly not within my knowledge. Take a guess. Monster? Replied hesitantly. No, it's actually an evil spirit. It's called a spiritualist. Doesn't it look funny? Actually, that's just a disguise. They attack spiritualists, absorb their magic power, and then self-destruct. They're a very dangerous, evil spirit. How can an ordinary person deal with it? In fact, it's the easiest for an ordinary person to defeat it. If a spiritualist were to fight it, 80% of the magic power of their magical attacks would be absorbed by it. Less than 20% of their attacks would be able to cause any damage to it. However, ordinary people don't have magic power, so they can fight it with confidence. As you can see, it's very weak in melee combat. An adult can basically smash it. Then can't spiritualists just fight it by dismembering it? Spiritualists' bodies are all strengthened, right? When it gets close, it will also absorb the opponent's magic power. So, spiritualists shouldn't come into contact with it, unless you're a strengthening type and can destroy it with one punch. What's the reason it was placed here? It can be considered a type of environmental trap. Not only do the two teams have to be wary of each other, but they also have to be wary of the traps hidden in the dark. At the moment, Chun Zhao was with Steven in a private room. How's the data? The number of viewers in North America in the first 10 minutes was 50 million. Now it has grown to 80 million, Steven said. That's not even half the Super Bowl record. This is only the first game of the regular season. Do you know what that means? The opening game of the NFL's regular season did not exceed the peak value of 30 million. Do you know that just now, more than 20 brands of various types have asked me about the title sponsorship fee? They are all first-tier or super first-tier brands, ranging from sports brands to fashion brands. Steven said excitedly. At the same time, he turned his gaze back to the arena. But the first match, can we win? According to the host's calculations, the Storm only had a 40% chance of winning. Steven was still worried about the outcome of the match. No matter who it was, they hoped for a good omen for the first match. 70%, Chun Zhao said. In fact, he cheated, because Chun Zhao also wanted to win the first match. However, Chun Zhao had done it very discreetly. He had done something to Hakuchiro. Under certain circumstances, Hakuei Hashiro would suddenly erupt with extraordinary strength. In other words, the opening match of the Supernatural League was a success. However, the Storm was their team, so they naturally had to be responsible for the Storm's results. A team could not always win. That would lose the fun of the competition. However, they also had to ensure a certain chance of winning. Only then could they attract as many viewers as possible. The match went on and on. The audience was filled with excitement. The data from Japan and China has also been sent back. Japan's Tokyo TV station has a rating of 9% and a 45% market share, Stevens said. China has 45% and 26% market share. The rating was based on the number of TVs. The market share was based on the number of TVs that were turned on. In other words, out of every 100 people watching TV in Japan, 45% were watching the competition. On the other hand, 26% were watching the competition in China. What about the number of viewers in Europe? We're still calculating. Judging from the feedback from several major markets, there was no need to worry. The competition was already a great success. It was a global competition. The first match lasted for 2.5 hours before it finally ended. In the end, the Storm had a tragic victory. In the end, the Storm only had one member left, while the Fuji team lost. The peak number of viewers in North America exceeded 110 million. Now, everyone was eagerly waiting for the second match. In terms of business and influence, the competition was already a great success. Just the broadcasting rights had been auctioned off for sky-high prices in various countries. As the nominal major shareholder of the Storm, Stephen naturally gave out huge bonuses to all the members. After all, the money he'd earned today was probably more than he'd earned in the past few decades. All kinds of authorizations, all kinds of contracts, all of them made him very rich. Chun Zhao went home and rested for a few days. Recently, he'd been busy with the Storm's training. After all, as the main coach, he had to do many things himself. The competition was also growing. With the spread of various media and social media, more people started paying attention to the competition. Just the authorization for the dolls of the main members of the Storm was sold for $200 million. All the players in the first match had gone from poor to multimillionaires because of all sorts of endorsements and image authorizations. Especially Hakashiro. He'd been an ascetic in the past, but now he was extremely famous in both Japan and North America. The Japanese media did not criticize him for leading the North American Storm to win against the Japanese Fuji team. Instead, they felt that he'd won glory for the country. No matter who won the first match, it was a civil war for the Japanese. His net worth also became a billionaire overnight. Plus, with his outstanding performance in the opening match, he'd become a household name in both countries. Chapter 3307. The league was flourishing. In less than half a year, the World Supernatural League had become the most valuable league. The value of the North American Storm also increased. But contrary to the market value, the Storm's results were terrible. After winning the first match, they lost 3 matches in a row. It couldn't be helped. The Storm was below average in the league. Nevertheless, the Storm's value increased day by day. All sorts of advertisers and sponsors came one after another. It was as if they didn't see the Storm's losses. Of course, the Storm wasn't just weak. It was also because their opponents were strong. The 2 Chinese teams and Europe's Scarlet team had defeated the North American Storm. Chun Zhao couldn't do anything. The difference in strength was too great, unless Chun Zhao cheated them all. Otherwise, the obvious difference in strength couldn't be made up for with tactics or occasional outbursts. In the past half a year, Chun Zhao had been very busy. He was almost always in the different regions. 3 more competition venues had been added. Each had its own specialty. This made the competition more interesting. It could be said that every sum of money invested now could bring an astonishing rate of return. Plus, it was a bonus period, so they didn't lose money in almost every match. No matter how bad a team's results were, there were still plenty of sponsors throwing money at them. However, at the start of the 5th match, the North American Storm ushered in a wave of results, with 2 consecutive victories. President, the psionic team, is doing something. Do you have time? West asked. What? Chen Zhao asked on the phone. They found an ancient relic. They've been excavating it recently. Their specific goal is still unknown. Has Bayert sent any news? No. He said that only Vestana knows what their goal is. She didn't tell anyone what they're digging. The supernatural organization and the psionic team had maintained a peaceful relationship for a long time. The psionic team was an enemy that the organization had supported. But now the psionic team's strength was gradually growing. One was Vestana's ability. The other was the arrival of the spiritual chi tide. Many people's strength had increased to varying degrees. This clearly wasn't in the organization's interest and needs. The psionic team wasn't strong enough to threaten the organization, but the psionic team was getting closer and closer to that red line. Therefore, both West and Qin Zhao were on guard. Once the strength of the psionic team reached or exceeded that red line, then the supernatural organization would find an excuse to start a war with the psi team. They had to kill the threat in the cradle to avoid nurturing a tiger. Belster suspects that there is some unknown power in the ancient ruin. Vestana has been in a state of excitement during the excavation. Can you find out which era the ancient relic belongs to? I can't find anything. I've looked through all the documents I could find. There's no information about the ancient ruins. Then let's wait and see, Qin Zhao said. If they really get something big, then we'll attack them and take their spoils. All right, now that we're done with business, let's talk about some personal matters. Guild leader, does the North American storm have any plans to go public? Qin Zhao was surprised that West would talk to him about this. But since West had asked, there was nothing to hide. Yes, the North American storm was now very valuable. It had only been established for half a year, but they had already achieved profits and even recovered 60% of their investment. The market value was over $5 billion. Investors were very optimistic about the storm's future. Qin Zhao and Stephen's plan was to throw the team into the stock market again. The storm's current value wasn't because of their results, but because of the North American market. This was also a bonus brought by the market environment. When will you go public? Give me an exact time. I plan to buy a lot. Probably next year, Qin Zhao said. When the financial report for the fourth quarter comes out. The better the financial report, the higher the valuation and the more excited the market would be. Going public blindly wouldn't result in bad results, but it wouldn't reach expectations. Oh, I'll take the store members out to relax this weekend. Do you want to come? Forget it. President, you've left all the work to me. I'm so busy right now. You're slandering me, aren't you? You're the one who said that I don't need to be responsible for the regular missions, and I don't need to manage the miscellaneous affairs of the association. When you guys went on a vacation, I single-handedly finished all the missions that had accumulated for a year. That's not a vacation. It's a conference. It's the same. Are you really not coming? At least before I finish some troublesome missions, I won't have time. The wind and waves on the sea could always make people forget their troubles quickly. Seagulls flew above their heads. If they were unlucky, they might even drop a pile of poop on the yacht. More than 10 official members of the storm were currently on Qin Zhao's yacht. The preseason had ended. They had a month of leisure time. They'd gotten the last ticket to the playoffs. This also completed the plan for the first season. As for the final ranking in the playoffs, in Qin Zhao's words, they had to do their best and leave the rest to fate. There were always many things that didn't go as planned in the first season. For example, 2 official members thought that they could be arrogant after becoming famous. They broke the team rules and disobeyed Qin Zhao's orders. In the end, Qin Zhao terminated their contracts and kicked them out of the league. They would even be sent to court. This was also a way for Qin Zhao to establish his authority, even if he only planned to coach for 1 season. However, Qin Zhao was also the second largest shareholder of the storm. He didn't like disobedient people. Hakuchiro, are you sure? Starting next season, you'll be the coach of the storm. Qin Zhao and Hakuchiro leaned against the railing of the deck and chatted. Coach, I'm not sure if I'm up to the job. You see, I've also coached for 1 season without any experience. In terms of management, I'll give you the greatest help. Next season, you'll mainly be in charge of training and leading the team. There won't be any personnel changes in the new season. You're familiar with the people in the team, so I believe you'll do well. Is this an official appointment? As for the contract, you can have your agent talk to the department manager of the storm. I'm just confirming your intentions. Before that, I still have some personal matters to deal with. Before that, I can't give you an answer. Can you tell me what it is?